Hello Internet, hello Wotive, I'm Jackie Fox. What follows is an old TrustStone guide that I made way back in the day, but I am re-releasing it with this up front because there has been a major QOL change for TrustStones. Even for people who were dedicated to the TrustStone system, leveling TrustStone passives required a mind-numbing amount of months of maxing out your pots on farming to get the required shards to have just enough experience, even overutilizing the techniques of advantageous currency exchange that I described in my previous video to maximize the amount of experience you were getting as you were upgrading those passives. There has been a major quality of life to that system in terms of updates that now every one of those stones has a tripled value. They actually did even more than I thought in their change of the UI of the TrustStone system. So blues are now 3 times as much, but the purples are actually 5 times as much. So it actually makes you lose 750 experience points in value, which means less considering the numbers are a lot bigger, but you now should actually just make purples and use them to level stuff up. It's not effective to trade blues for purples, it's not effective anymore to trade purples for blues, just make the shit and level it up. It's super simple, no extra economics required anymore. Trade a lot of your greens into blues just so you don't have to tap as many times, because now with the upgraded experience rates for these items, you don't really have to tap that much, and I'm sure a lot of players that may have some of these resources banked just make some trust runes and surprise yourself at how quickly you're maxing out all of those passives that had seemed daunting before. So with that being said, keep in mind everything that I say throughout this video, but just know that this whole system has now become suddenly very achievable. I also want to mention that if you've been collecting any amount of high score challenge medals, or if you've been collecting any amount of the 5 UR TrustStone tickets, you should be able to, if not in this or many other ways, be able to get pink trust shards without having to do any sort of trading at all. And in fact, it may become viable again for you to trade up for pink now that you may not have to obsessively hoard blue in order to be able to level up those passives. So honestly, with this QOL update, and it is huge, and also, by the way, it also seems to, in my limited experience, but I either have incredible luck or this has changed too, but you are far more likely to roll at least the max level passive on a UR. So you're not like, oh yes, I want sleep resistance, but that's 5, I need 8. Oh, that's sleep resistance, but I need 6, but it's 6, I need 8. You know what I mean? You're getting 8. You do occasionally get the other ones, but more often than not, you may still be getting the wrong passive, but at least it's at its max. And these make this whole system a lot more user-friendly than it was before, and for a lot of people who have never considered running trust runes in this game, it's not super simple, but it is certainly a lot more rewarding in terms of time and effort put into it now, more than ever, and much, oh my god, much more than when it was originally released. So, if you're willing to give TrustStones a second chance, here's my video on how to build them for lazy people.
One thing that you do need to pay attention to, set bonuses will stack with everything. I have an attack set on here, so the attack set bonus is 10% attack up, 10% defense piercing rate. Super important, that last part, I think, especially in modern play, especially on these maps with 50 base defense. Defense piercing is everything for physical units wanting to do damage. But that aside, you get the same set bonus even with green runes. So there is a way to min-max this if you don't want to put a lot of effort in, but you have a trust master that you're using, but you don't have the time to fully pink it out or do all this extra stuff. Just get sets of green that make the most sense for whatever you got. That is a good way to kind of min-max the system. For people looking to go a bit further, sometimes if you're already grinding events, it makes sense to go for those tickets that give you 5 of the reds. But I personally don't think that this is usually the best way to go. Like, I have done this a couple times if I run out of trades for the month, but let me talk to you some theory crafting about what each type of shard is good for. So purples go two different ways. Yellows are kind of useless. I guess you can make temporary. I still wouldn't level these up necessarily unless you really aren't going to put any effort into this. To get reds, I guess yellows would be an easy way to kind of have level 20 stuff. And I guess if you picked up all of that extra adamantite recently, you could probably afford to make sets of yellow if you're not going to go for this. Really, yellows just go up to purple. I wouldn't trade a yellow down. Yellows just go up to red. I wouldn't trade them down for purple. For the first phase, as you're trying to trade up for these, either because you're farming passives or because you're trying to get your initial pink stones, you're going to want to trade these guys up, right? So you're going to use upward exchange, and then you're going to trade your purples for pinks, 25 to 1. After you get done with kitting out everything with your pinks, you're going to start, you're actually going to keep building pinks, and you're going to basically, and this is probably one of the longer portions of this, kind of going 0 to 100. This is probably the part that's going to take the longest, but thanks to the recent, upgrades, this is a little bit better. Let me see if I have any dismantles left. Nope, I have used all of my dismantles for today. But what I'll do is I'll go into one of these and I'll just kind of look at, my main equipment. I'll try to see, what in this letter does not have its second passive. This is a TMR I don't really care that much about. It has a really good passive on it. It has some potential for ways you could build it. Everybody has it. It's a good one to start out with. But as you can see, I've kitted out several TMRs, so this is probably the one I least use, especially in PvP. So naturally, I haven't put in the effort to get the second passive. I would also wager to guess maybe this one doesn't. Nope, it does. This one? It does. Okay, but what I would do is I would take this same one right here, and I would dismantle and keep rolling this if I could, but I'm out of dismantles for today. I would take this one and keep farming it until I find a good passive, and then I would match it with one of these, and, use that one, constantly re-roll, trade off the passive until it has no passive, then you dismantle it, roll it again until you get a good passive. That's how you farm second passives for all this stuff. That's phase 2. And then in phase 3, I wouldn't necessarily, because of how many blues you're going to need to get the passives up, I wouldn't necessarily ever recommend trading blues up for purples unless you have like 24 purples, you need 1 red, and you can trade up 5 blues for 1 purple just to fix that. Cool, that's fine. But I wouldn't trade a lot of blues for purples to trade to reds early on, because you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot a bit for later on. That's kind of the basics of all of this. Let's get into a little bit more complicated and talk about stacking. The reason that the first and most uncomplicated thing that I ask you to do is to just make sets is because set bonuses are a completely new source of stats, and they will stack with everything, right? So no matter what passives I have here, no matter what passives I have on my other equipment, I can be guaranteed that I would get at least 5% all elemental attack resistance, at least 5% max HP, at least 10% attack, at least 10% defense piercing rate up. And if this, for example, and I think I do, I have defense piercing rate up here. So these two can stack with each other. These two mean that this TMR will give its unit a total of 14 defense piercing rate up. And this can go up to 10, so it can be a total of base 20 just from this one item. Now, keep in mind, let's say like the spine blade has defense piercing 20. Okay, so if you're going to, if I were to equip this glinting armor with my spine blade, I would end up with a total of 30 defense piercing rate. I would get this 10 from the set bonus, because that always stacks, and then I would get the greater of this and the 20 on the spine blade, which is of course going to be the 20 on the spine blade. So this becomes irrelevant if this is equipped with the spine blade. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of overthinking this, because if I was, I might not go for things like actually everything on here is pretty good, really. You don't see that on a lot of other stuff. Let me find one that is.